But you can see the patina. The patina has a patina. It's years and years of layering Chazarai on top of other stuff. Yeah.
Well, this is an amazingly creative space. For the people who don't know you yet, that are living in a cave and maybe not picking up that thing with paper, what is it called? A book, yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a teacher. I notice things. I write a blog every day and have for 20 years or 15 years. I've started a couple companies. I was VP of Direct Marketing at Yahoo. I was admitted to the Direct Marketing Hall of Fame a little while ago. Mostly I write about the changes in the world around us, about doing work that matters, about picking yourself, about caring.
You've been someone to me personally who's helped tremendously. I feel honored to be here, to be honest.
Wow.
It's like
Thanks, Brian.
We're talking everything entrepreneurship today with you, and I would love to do this kind of Q&A session live, but maybe let's start with some questions. I have so many still. I mean, I've been a fan of yours for as long as I can remember, from Permission Marketing to all the iconic books like Purple Cow, The Dip, and Linchpin, and Icarus, and all of them. I love every single one of them. Help break down for the people who maybe haven't read all those. What does it mean when you say work that matters? What is work that matters? What should we be quantifying or qualifying?
Okay, well, I think what I'd rather do is talk to people who have got the thread as opposed to start with people who haven't.
Okay.
And the frustration that people who have the thread is they know they want to make a difference. They know they want to make an impact in the world. And they believe they have the hard skills that are necessary. They look around, they say, I can code as well as that person. I can speak as well as he can. I can do this, right?
Right.
Why am I unable to make this leap? Why can't I make the connection happen?
Right.
And so my obsession lately for the last year or so is not about hard skills. I mean, permission marketing is 100% a hard skill, right? Understand the dynamics, the structure, and the strategy of asymmetrical information flow, and that's a hard skill. For me, it's actually about soft skills.
Okay.
That if we made a list of what we were looking for in someone to work with or work for or marry or parent or have as a parent, the list wouldn't include very few hard skills. Right? I want someone who can type faster than anyone else. Probably not.
Right.
I want someone who can read an X-ray better than anyone else. Probably not. What I want is somebody who can see, who can speak clearly, who can be honest, who can transform themselves when necessary, who can care about other people. These are all soft skills that for years the establishment has said weren't important.
Well, is that because the hard skills are easy to teach or are teachable?
I think it's mostly because hard skills are measurable. And so what happens is we come out of a job interview with somebody and we have a hard time saying, I just don't like the way it feels to be around him. But we don't have a hard time saying, nah, he can't do it. Doesn't speak 3 languages. So it's a measurable tick the box thing.
Right.
It's important to remember we only invented standardized tests 80 years ago. That this idea of scientific management is only 100 years old. Scientific management is an industrial activity in which if it can't be measured by a stopwatch, it doesn't matter. And what's happened is if it can be measured by a stopwatch, it can be done by a computer, or it can be done by someone cheaper than you. Mm-hmm. So you can't win either way.
Right.
So what we must do is find non-stopwatch skills. And that's why we built the Alt MBA. Like, so that the Alt MBA is this online workshop that I run. 28 countries people have come from. It happens around the world. And it's really difficult. And very few people do it. Only 125 at a time. But it's always full. And the outcome is that people's lives are transformed. And their lives are transformed because we're focusing on the soft skills, on the way we see ourselves, on how we see other people, on what it is to work together. Right? So you and I have known each other for a while, and I haven't participated in the projects that we've done because you're a better videographer than anyone else. You're a very good videographer, but are you the best videographer in the world? It doesn't matter. What matters is that your soft skills, that your empathy, that your willingness to understand and to see deeply, that resonates with people. It resonates with me, it resonates with the audience. So the people who are stuck, I fear, are confusing criticism or bad luck with a commentary on their hard skills, and it's not. And I think that they are hesitating to bring their full self to the work because it's really frightening to do so.
Wow, there's a lot there that you just said. I'd
Well,
love
it's
to.
a rant, sorry.
No, I'd love to unpack that a little bit. Say that again, because I want to underscore what you just said about people confusing, the criticism
Right.
with maybe some things that they need to work on better in the soft skill area.
Right. So let's use the one and only sports analogy of the day. If you don't win a marathon, it might be because you need to train harder, but it's probably because you need to learn where to put the tired.
Right.
And the people who are able to consistently perform well don't say when it's not working, my problem is this muscle. They understand that their problem is the way that they're processing the things that don't go well for them.
Right.
So if you're a musician and you put a song into the world and a critic comes and angrily denounces it, is it because the song wasn't good enough? Probably not. The real reason is because for that person on that day, it wasn't the right answer.
Right.
And what we have to do, Bob just won the Nobel Prize. Bob Dylan is the single most criticized musician in history, right? Bob Dylan has been vilified and attacked and booed off stage more than any other musician in history.
Right. Everyone complains they can't understand a word he says.
So does he need diction lessons? Does he need guitar lessons? It's neither of those things. What he needs to do is keep doing that work that matters to him and to the people who get the joke. It's never for everybody, but it might be for someone.
You've told me that story before about Zig Ziglar, who told you, what do you do if that person in the front row is not paying attention? Can you kind of relive that a little bit for us right here?
Sure. Well, Zig was my teacher from afar for many years, and I listened to all 72 hours of the tapes over and over again until I wore them out 3 times. And one time, I got booked to give a speech, and Zig was there. It was me and Zig and Mia Hamm and Gerald Ford. And it was the four of us. It was 20...
Eclectic group.
It was 22,000 people in Milwaukee.
Wow. Okay.
And so backstage, I'm young, he's not. And I turn to him and I say, so what do I do? There's that guy. He's always in the fourth row. He's asleep. He's not getting it. And you're standing up there and you're aiming your force of will at him and you're doing what you can. And I can't do Zig's voice anymore, but Zig turned to me and he said, he's not there for you. And you can't be there for him. What about all the other people who are leaning in? What about all the other people who are listening? Don't take from them for that guy, right? You're there for them. It transformed not just my speaking, it transformed everything. Because I don't look for new readers. I don't look for new audience members. If it's not for you, totally fine, right? The beauty of the Alt MBA, we've had 800 students. That's enough. And if someone else wants to take it, that's great. And if not, I don't have to go proselytizing it, because if it's not for you, it's not for you.
That's right. And I think that's a super important lesson. These days, we live in this digital age, we live in this connected economy. You don't need 1 million people anymore, right, to do whatever you need to do.
Right.
You just need the right number, and whatever that is, that's the number.
That's right. 1,000 true fans, Kevin Kelly calls them.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about people who are able to practice their craft, Abby Ryan is a painter in Pennsylvania. She's very talented. Her specific craft is she paints a painting every day, one oil painting from beginning to end. And Abby Ryan sells those paintings for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Do the math. That's a living. But more important than being a living, she's a teacher, she's a leader, and she gets to do what she loves to do. But only 365 people get to buy one of Abby Ryan's paintings every year. It's enough.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're surrounded by people. The social media folks, Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl, they put a counter right there on front of your face. How many people like you? How many people like you? What a horrible statement. That's not how many people like you. That's just a number. And if that number is connected to your happiness, you have to rewire yourself.
Yeah. And it's an amazing lesson. We just spent a couple weeks ago. We were with the Bentley Group. The people that make really, really expensive cars. Mm-hmm. And they're following the same model. They're not Toyota. They're not selling millions and millions of cars. They're selling a few hundred every year, and that's good enough for their model.
Right, but there's a huge cost to this. Let's be really clear.
Yeah.
The cost is the distance from 0 people buying a Bentley to 500 people buying a Bentley is very narrow. So what you have to do is extraordinary, unreasonable things to make it so that 500 people will cross the street to sign up for what you do. Mm-hmm. So in that basket over there, I have dark chocolate from 10 different countries, 20 countries, 30 different crafts people who make dark chocolate. Now, I'm obsessive about dark chocolate. I don't drink wine, so I use my wine budget to buy dark chocolate. Fine. What do you have to do to get me to buy your dark chocolate? Right. Very good dark chocolate doesn't cut it. Extremely good dark chocolate doesn't cut it. I'm not going to even talk about extremely good dark chocolate, but I'm going to talk about Rogue or Soma or Ashkenazi because Sean Ashkenazi doesn't make extremely good dark chocolate. He makes insane dark chocolate. That's the cost. The cost is if you don't want to make average stuff for average people, you have to make unbelievable stuff for a few people who care.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to differentiate yourself some way, right? If you don't have the biggest budget in town and you can't rent someone else's audience, your product or your service or your thing has got to be so remarkable, right?
Right, and what remarkable means is worth making a remark about. So it's not up to you, it's up to me. If I'm going to talk about it, then it spreads. But you don't get to decide what's important to me. I get to decide what's important to me. What often happens with entrepreneurs, because we have so much trouble with our mother-in-law and so much trouble with the money and so much trouble with everything else, is when it comes down to it, we back off just a little bit. At the last step, we say it's good enough. Actually, it's not. That's that last step where you didn't push it off to number 11. That's when you stumbled, because you said it's good enough for everyone. Yeah, but you're not making something for everyone. You're making something for me.
So how do you reconcile then this idea? Because you talked about shipping it a lot. Reed Hastings has talked about, if you ship your product and you're not embarrassed about it right at first, you ship too late. Maybe help reconcile what you just said.
Okay, so I'm not sure Reed and I completely agree.
Okay.
And I have never said, what the hell, just ship it. Never. That's what people who are afraid think I'm saying.
Right.
What I'm saying is you will never be ready. You should be prepared, but you'll never be ready. Because what it means to be ready is it's going to work.
Okay.
And you don't know it's going to work. So when Gutenberg launched the printing press was amazing. By today's standards, it was terrible. But by those standards, it was amazing. Except 94% of the people in Europe were illiterate. So it was a stupid time to launch the printing press.
Too soon, yeah.
When Carl Benz launched the car, it was against the law to drive. There were no roads and there were no gas stations. Really dumb time to launch the car. He couldn't possibly be ready. So what I'm arguing is not that you should ship things that are sloppy or flawed. What I'm saying is if the thing that's holding you back is you're saying to yourself, it's not ready, it's not perfect, those are the symptoms of fear. And you will never, ever get over that fear, because the easiest thing to do is not ship it. And what I'm saying is the discomfort we feel with shipping feels differently between I shipped it and I'm embarrassed because it's sloppy, and I shipped it and I'm not sure it's going to work. Those are two different things.
Okay, that's a really important distinction, yeah. How do we push through the resistance? You talked about the resistance a lot. Give us some tips about how to, this is a mental game, right? I mean,
over our shoulders are many copies of Steve Pressfield's book, The War of Art, and the sequel, which I was lucky enough to publish, Do the Work. And Steve named that voice in our head, the resistance. It's the thing that gives us writer's block. It's the thing that can turn you into a shriveling heap of jelly.
It's the fight or flight.
Right. But you cannot push through it. That's a mistake. It doesn't go away. What it does is it becomes someone you can dance with. That's the distinction. So I've been backstage with some extraordinary people. The best ones get nervous before they go on stage. It doesn't go away. Mm-hmm. If you're waiting for it to go away, you're going to wait forever. What you do is say, oh, I feel this and I'm about to go on stage, and I'm about to ship it. That, as we talked about with the marathon, you can't make the tired go away, but you can learn to put it somewhere.
Interesting. Yeah, Adam Grant has a book out on creativity. He talks about turning that anxiety into anticipation or looking forward to.
Correct.
It's a shifting.
Correct. And so I don't believe there are geniuses. If I'm a genius, you're a genius, we're all geniuses, or no one is. What I do believe is there are people who know how to dance with that feeling because of cultural reasons, because of who their parents were because of something, and they start pulling a thread. And if we look at the earliest work of all the people we say we admire, right? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg's early work was super sloppy and expensive and ended in litigation. That the first versions of AOL were dumb and the management didn't know what they were doing. I mean, go down the list of any business you want, any nonprofit you want. It never starts well, but it begins. And then we pull the thread and we pull the thread. And as we're pulling the thread, we're getting better at our craft. And the only way to get good at our craft is to do our craft, not to study our craft.
Are we talking about emotional intelligence? Is that what this is about?
Well,
being able to put certain emotions in certain places?
I think that one of the things that they teach kids at good schools is this idea of metacognition, which means thinking about thinking, which means instead of having a tantrum, say, I feel like I'm going to have a tantrum. That if you can do that, you have a chance to let your executive function kick in. Right. And what we know is that the executive function is the thing that separates winners and losers now. Is when cool-headed, calm people look at their alternatives, they make better decisions. And what do we do for a living? We make change. And how do we make change? We make decisions. That's what we make now. And if you're making it with this instinctual thing, then why are you surprised you're not very good at it?
Right. Or people don't want to work with you.
Exactly, which is a version of not being good at it.
So I'll tell a quick backstory. Actually, this happened to me. You expressed...
What a great story. Yeah.
Well, you expressed this to me, and I remember the words that you said to me. So we had, in Orange County, California, Southern California, we had about 1,000 people in this gigantic amphitheater. And Seth was about to go on stage in about 5 or 10 minutes, and I remember you actually saying, I feel frustrated that we're not going on yet. There was some delay happening, and we were trying to get you mic'd up, and all kinds of running around was happening backstage. And when you said, I feel frustrated, I thought, uh-oh, this is code for something else. This is code for, like, hurry up, get with it, or, like, I'm out of here.
No, it wasn't.
Well, anyway. So in that very moment, actually, a catastrophe happened. So, everything was hanging on your keynote. And we had this big screen, and like I said, everyone's in their seats, and we can hear the people coming, and this giant projector which was set up. Someone had not secured it, and it had fallen off face first down to the stage, broken into 20 different pieces.
So to be clear, it weighed 100 pounds, and it was this big, and if it had hit someone, they would have died. That's what the level we're talking about is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it shattered into 20 pieces, and because you had been so prepared and obviously been thinking through a presentation that was picture and slide heavy, not, there's no words on your slides. I think you felt some anxiety at that moment.
Yeah, but I was also really impressed at the way you responded to it. Because Zig used to talk about the difference between react and respond. If you go to the doctor and she says, good news, you're responding to the medicine, it's different than if she says, bad news, you're reacting to the medicine. That's true. You responded, you didn't react, and that saved the entire evening.
I'm told often I may have missed my calling in life. Like, a lot of people think, because I get more calm, and in fact my wife really gets on me sometimes for shifting into slower gear when things go wrong. But like, maybe I should have been like an airline pilot or something. Like, attention everyone, I'm sorry to say that we're headed down nosedive.
That's right, bye!
Yeah. No, I get really calm in stressful situations.
Well, it was great.
Well, it worked out. But yeah, whether you call it emotional intelligence or you talking about being responsive versus reactive, I think that's important business lessons.
But the cool takeaway here is if it's intelligence, you can learn it. And that changes everything. It's not about talent. It's not about gifts. It's about choosing to learn how to be good at it. And that's why I'm so optimistic. Because we could choose to ship our best work. We can choose to pick ourselves. We can choose to care more about other people. We can choose to see the world as it is. These are choices. And if we can acknowledge that we're making a choice that gets us into a corner, that gets us feeling down, that gets us rejected, well, then we can make a different choice.
Let's talk about vulnerability.
Okay.
It's something that gets a lot of people stuck. Why does it get us stuck, and how do we break through? I mean, there's there's a fork in the road, right, between breakdown and breakthrough.
So you ready for this?
Yeah.
Reassurance is futile. It's not like bathing, right? Bathing, if you do it every day, reliably, pretty much works what it's supposed to do.
Right.
There's no amount of reassurance that's going to be sufficient. You cannot be sufficiently encouraged to consistently do better work. It just doesn't work.
Now, I feel pretty good when someone puts some money in my bank account.
Uh-huh.
To me, that is one indicator of assurance.
That you reassured yourself.
Yes.
External reassurance is when someone says, Brian, everything's going to be fine. And you know why that's a bad idea? Number one, everything's not going to be fine. You're going to be rejected. Yeah. You're going to do projects that don't work. You're going to almost run out of money. You're going to have this fail and this fail and this fail. So as soon as those things start happening, the person who reassured you is pretty much a liar, because what they said was everything's going to be fine. No, it's not.
Yeah, you're right.
And that in order to become the self-sufficient, self-propelled entrepreneurs we're capable of being, self-reassurance is the only reassurance we can look for. What we learn from Brené is that shame is an external force that we choose to internalize. Right? Eleanor Roosevelt, no one can make you feel badly without your permission. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the best advice you ever gave me, well, one of the pieces of advice was when you said, shame only works if you receive it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we live in a culture where we shame women, where we shame people who don't look like us, where we shame newcomers, where we shame old people, where we shame and shame and shame and shame, because it's a deal killer. It is the single easiest way to shut somebody up. It is the single easiest way to win a political debate. It is the single easiest way to, in the short run, get your way. So we're busy dishing shame to people all the time. And if you're open to it because you don't believe, because you haven't sufficiently reassured yourself, because if you believe them that you are actually shameful, then it can go right to you.
Right.
And the same thing's true throughout the animal kingdom. That, if you go to a dog pound, a shelter, and you try to look a dog in the eye, the dog will always look away. Because that dog has established that you're the alpha and can't play with you, right? Well, the same thing's true for humans. So what we have to do is realize we live in an economy based on connection. That being trusted, being known, having people look forward to engaging with us, that's the key. They don't want to engage with somebody who's not present. They don't want to engage with somebody who's selfish. So the vulnerability opens the door for connection, but it also opens the door for shame. And so what we have to do as professionals is build walls, because you need walls to lean against. You need a box to push against, right? That thinking outside the box is hard because it's dark and there's no leverage. But we need structure. And so what we say, in my case, it was, I haven't read an Amazon review in 5 years because it wasn't making my work better. It was making my work worse. I was inviting anonymous people, many of whom had never read my work, most of whom it wasn't for, to tell me I was a bad person. Why was that going to make my work better? It wasn't. So I stopped. And that decision to stop, to not read the comments, to not count how many people liked and tweeted and stuff. So, I understand you have a business reason to say to everybody whatever you're supposed to do on Facebook.
Yeah.
But if no one does, I'm fine with that. Because I'm not here for the other people. I'm here for you. And press a button if you want to, but I don't need you to do that.
So your message is still shun the non-believers.
Totally. Because the non-believers aren't going to be converted by you anyway.
Yeah.
They're going to be converted by their friends. And the way that happens is your tribe gets so engaged in what you do, they tell their friends. And that's what changes culture. It's really important to understand culture beats everything. Culture beats strategy. Culture beats pricing. Culture beats hiring strategies. Culture beats technology. Culture always wins. So our job is to change the culture. And we do that 10 people at a time who then tell 10 people.
We probably need to give props to Drucker on that one because he did say culture eats strategy for breakfast.
There you go.
It just came full circle. Wow. Let's go back to the alt MBA a little bit and talk about that. I got all this great advice from you and several others. I'm loosely working on this book, over the past couple of years on this idea, and I'll maybe flesh it out here a little bit. That's called Sum Total, SUM Total.
Nice.
Which is based on the premise that we are a sum total of all the people that we've met and our experiences.
Yes.
And so if that's true for me, I'm going to end up pretty amazing because of all the great people I've been able to, rub against and get some of that fairy dust stuff on me. I've learned some great lessons. My biggest regret is that I didn't meet you sooner. That I didn't take the advice or hear it sooner. So maybe, along the lines of this alt MBA, even though maybe it's not age sensitive or age restrictive, talk to me about some of the advice that you would give to your 20-year-old self if you're 20 years old in 2016, headed into 17.
Okay, well, first, I'm excited about this book. I haven't read any of it, and I can't wait. When is it coming out?
It's a work in progress.
So when is it coming out? Pick a date, any date you want.
It's going to come out this time next year.
Okay, so October 30th, to give you a few extra days, 2017?
Sure.
You're committing to that?
I will commit right here.
Can you thumbs up if you heard him say that, all right? That's important.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to clarify one thing. I don't give any advice in the Alt MBA. I don't show up in the Alt MBA. I don't give people coaching sessions. I'm not even there.
Okay.
On purpose. It's a process because I don't believe fairy dust is easily transferable from human to human. I think you think other people are giving you fairy dust. What you've actually done is given yourself fairy dust and blamed it on the people around you.
Well, I feel
and that's a great news, right? This is great news because the thing is, there are all these people, the folks who are watching, you've never met those people. And there are books you haven't read, and they're all available.
Yeah.
But if you're not ready to go get it, it's not going to work, right? So my point is, we have to seek it out. We have to say, I'm ready. Herschel Gordon Lewis just died a couple weeks ago. He invented the modern gory slasher movie. Then he stopped doing that and was one of the great copywriters of all time. Go figure. And he wrote books about how to do direct marketing, copywriting. Well, his book was there 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 years before I read it. But the day I read it and was ready to learn from it, it changed the way I could write. Well, actually, that's not true. I changed the way I could write based on what I consumed. So what I'm getting at here is, it starts with this checkup from the neck up, as they used to say. Deciding that you want to be a warrior in the service of the change you are making, which means that you're willing to put the fear in a little box, you're willing to put the ego in a little box and carry it with you because you can't get rid of it. But that decision, I can't force it on you. No one can force it on you. What you can do is surround yourself with people who expect that of you, because we want to meet those people's expectations. So this is the problem with reality TV. It's the problem with cable news, is we are surrounded by media that expects us to go buy a Kardashian purse or to go, titillate about the latest titillation, as opposed to surrounding ourselves with people who expect us to do difficult and generous work. Yeah. That choice is something you can choose to do right now.
So let's go back to the advice to the 20-year-old.
Okay.
Because I would like a straight answer. Give me something tactical. I'm not asking for a roadmap.
Right.
but just maybe some nuggets, because I really do feel, again, my biggest regret is that I didn't hear and implement some of this advice earlier in my life. And I appreciate you saying, the thing about the fairy dust. But I do feel like that advice has been invaluable to me, only because I've tried to implement it, right? I've tried things that might not work. I've tried to do work that matters. I've tried to, not fly too close to the sun or too close to the ocean. I've tried all these things, and I've seen great results.
Right.
So maybe give us another couple nuggets here before we close.
Well, there's a note that just flashed by about a guy who lost his job that got exported to another country. And, think about the radiologist who's now discovering after all those years that a computer can read x-rays better than he can. That most jobs, if we can write down what we need you to do, we can find someone cheaper than you, and it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And guess what? If you were in charge, you'd do the same thing.
Right.
Right? And so the challenge is, how do we do something that can't be written down? And that's what I say to a 20-year-old today is, guess what? For 15 years, everyone was lying to you. And they said to you, you need a good grade on your SATs and you need good grades at school. No one cares.
Right.
We don't care. Zero. Guess what? There are countries around the world bigger than the United States where half the people your age have better grades than you because there's so many people, right? So that's not going to win. What's going to win is for you to have a conversation with yourself, to realize, one, you're going to live for 100 more years. Two, it's all going to turn out one way or another. It just keeps unfolding. And three, the thing that you are so petrified of today, that you are so filled with shame about today, you're not even going to remember what it is 2 months from now. No recollection that it was even present. That you have erected this force field around yourself, thinking you're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
But the economy just changed, and you're not only not protecting yourself, you're hurting yourself. We need to strip away that force field and expose ourselves to these other things. And the way we do it, and this is the part that where a lot of people in the entrepreneurial world differ from me, so I'll be really clear here. We do it by being more generous. That we don't say, I can be generous and get something back in return, right?
That's a transaction.
Right. So Zig used to say, you can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And my version of it is, what an opportunity to help other people get what they want. Period.
So quid
Period.
pro quo, no.
Just quid, no quo. Or not just quo, no quid. I don't know which one it is. The point is that in a connection economy, it's a privilege to be connected. It's a privilege to be generous.
Right.
Figure out how to do that. Figure out how to do it more. Figure out how to do it more. Figure out how to keep doing it. Because I have never once met someone who did that who was also in financial trouble.
Yeah, I mean that's the irony, right? It's counterintuitive to give, but like it's that old kind of spiritual thought or philosophy that as you lose yourself, you find yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
But let's also be clear. I'm not saying give away what you make.
Right.
I'm not saying everything you make is free. I'm not saying every event you run is free. This is not about lowering your price. This is about bringing that magic you have inside you to more people more heartedly, right? More open-heartedly. That when we start doing that, the money part isn't what it's about almost ever.
Right.
Right? That when people go to see Bruce Springsteen and pay $300 to sit in the 40th row, they're not complaining about the price because something happened for those 3 hours. And the price isn't the point. The point is that Bruce didn't just show up and play a jukebox. Bruce showed up. And we've been told not to show up, but showing up is actually a great tool.
Well, let me highlight a couple of my personal favorites, and then I'll close here. One of the pieces of advice that stands out to me is when you told me, shockingly, that Yoda was wrong. that phrase from Star Wars,
right.
Do or do not, there is no try,
right.
is false. Because
I believe that, yeah.
There is a try, and try is the opposite of hiding. That was like mind blown. I love that advice because up to that point, I was kind of, stuck in analysis paralysis. I was, always polishing and not shipping. I was afraid of lots of things. I was afraid of, what the critics might say or, all these different things. And
I'm still afraid of those things.
Well, but that released me in lots of ways. It freed me up to actually reframe the way I think, and that is, do we want to live in a world where we're not allowed to make mistakes?
Right.
I mean, that's not reality anyway, but that's sometimes the reality that other people put on us. Don't screw up, don't even try because you're going to get punished and all that. But the reality is we try and make mistakes. We do stuff that doesn't work all the time.
Right, but let's be really clear about what kind of mistakes,
yeah.
Right? The pilot who makes a sloppy mistake doesn't get to make any more mistakes.
Right.
The customer service rep who, in trying to connect to somebody by being thoughtful and open, ends up saying the wrong thing, that's a totally different kind of mistake.
Right.
And those kinds of mistakes we need more of. We need more mistakes in the service of service.
Right, right. Yeah, because you also told me, and we're looking at Poke the Box here, that the idea with, as the engineer or the person who's trying stuff continues to try, eventually they figure it out. So you said the person who fails is the person who doesn't try or fails too far that they can't come back to fight another day.
Right.
And that's the true failure.
The goal is to fail the most.
Yeah.
So I've failed more than any person listening to this, and I'm proud of it. And part of the secret of failing more often is you need to make it so that your failures aren't fatal. pilots shouldn't make those kinds of failures.
Yeah.
But most of us aren't pilots. The idea that you live in a project universe where in the service of what you seek to do, you will fail with some of your projects, that's what we signed up for. And we shouldn't deny that it's happening. We should embrace that it's happening because that's what we signed up for.
Yeah. The other thing, lastly, here is there's just these little nuggets that are so precious to me. You said the riskiest thing we can do is play it safe.
For sure.
And then you also told me, Brian, Prince Charming is not coming. And that, you really need to quit waiting to get picked. You need to pick yourself. And that statement, pick yourself, although several other people who I respect have also echoed that same sentiment, has been probably the single most important thing that I've ever done. And it's been transformative. It's been amazing.
And you've transformed other people because you did it. So that's worth everything. Well,
thank you for having me. I want to just maybe sign off here. If you want to watch more of these YouTube videos that I make, I've got like 400 plus, lots of them with
They're
Seth.
good. They're good.
They're okay. They're getting better. You can go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BehindTheBrandTV, and then tell us where we can find some of your latest stuff.
Just type Seth into Google. That'll work. My new book is called What to Do When It's Your Turn. It's at yourturn.link.
Great. And continue to put your questions here. I'll be checking everything post-interview here. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.